They say you never really know someone until you've lived with them for a decade. I used to think that was cynical nonsense spouted by bitter divorcees at bars, nursing their third whiskey and their wounded pride. Now I understand it differently. A decade isn't when you finally know someone. It's when you realize you never knew them at all. My name is Trevor Walsh, and I'm a project manager for a construction firm in Austin, Texas. Nothing glamorous, but it pays well enough to afford a comfortable life in the suburbs. I'm 42 years old, though most days I feel about 60. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. The kind of weight that settles into your bones and makes a home there. For 15 years, I thought I had it all figured out. A wife who smiled at me over morning coffee. 2 kids who actually seemed to like having me around. A house with a mortgage that would be paid off right around the time I qualified for senior discounts. The American dream, neatly packaged and gift-wrapped. Natalie, my wife of 15 years, was a dental hygienist at a practice in downtown Austin. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue back in 2008, right before the economy decided to implode. She had this laugh that made everyone in the room turn and smile, even if they didn't know what was funny. She was 25 then, fresh out of her hygienist program, full of plans and energy. I was 27, working my way up from assistant site supervisor, convinced I was going to revolutionize the construction industry with my innovative scheduling spreadsheets. We got married in 2010, bought our first house in 2012, had our daughter Emma in 2014, and our son Tyler in 2017. If you're keeping track, that's a textbook progression of middle-class American life. We checked every box. We did everything right. Or so I thought. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't announce itself with trumpets and fanfare. It doesn't kick down your door and demand attention. It's quiet. It's a series of small changes you explain away because the alternative is too horrible to consider. She's tired from work. She's stressed about her mother's health. She's going through something hormonal. She just needs space. You tell yourself these things because the truth, that the person sleeping next to you has become a stranger, that the life you've built is constructed on sand, that everything you believed was solid is actually vapor, is too devastating to accept. So you don't accept it. You make excuses. You rationalize. You convince yourself that you're being paranoid, that you're the problem, that if you just tried harder or paid more attention or were more understanding, everything would go back to normal. But here's what I've learned. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. And when the evidence is staring you in the face, no amount of denial will make it disappear. This is the story of how my marriage ended. Not with a bang, but with a series of text messages, a pattern of lies, and the slow, crushing realization that the woman I'd built my entire adult life around had decided I was no longer worth her honesty. This is the story of how I discovered the truth, how I documented everything with the methodical precision that made me good at my job, and how I made sure that when the dust settled, justice wasn't just served, it was delivered with interest. They say living well is the best revenge. I disagree. The best revenge is making sure that actions have consequences, that lies get exposed, and that people who destroy families for their own selfish desires don't get to walk away unscathed. This isn't a story about redemption or forgiveness or finding myself. This is about what happens when a man who spent his entire life playing by the rules discovers that the game was rigged from the start and decides to flip the board. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday in March. I remember because it was trash day, and I'd forgotten to take out the bins again. Natalie had been on me about it for weeks, leaving increasingly passive-aggressive notes on the refrigerator. This particular morning, There was no note, no reminder, no annoyed sigh when she walked past the still full trash can in the garage. She was in a good mood. Too good. She hummed while making coffee, something she hadn't done in months. She'd showered before I woke up, which was unusual since she typically hit snooze 3 times and rushed through her morning routine. Her hair was styled. She was wearing the perfume I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago, the expensive bottle that usually only came out for special occasions. "You look nice," I said, pouring myself coffee from the pot she'd made. "Thanks," she replied, not looking up from her phone. Her thumbs moved rapidly across the screen, typing something that made her smile. "Big day at work?" "Oh no, just the usual." She slipped her phone into her purse quickly, almost protectively. "I might be late tonight. Dr. Patterson wants to discuss some new procedures he's thinking about implementing." I didn't sleep that night. Natalie came home at 11:47 p.m. I was watching the clock on my phone from the couch, pretending to be asleep. She moved quietly through the house, avoiding the creaky floorboard by the kitchen, the one we'd been meaning to fix for 3 years. She knew exactly where to step. Practice. The next morning, Wednesday, I went to work like normal, kissed her goodbye, told her I loved her. She smiled and said it back, and I watched her face for any sign of guilt, any crack in the performance. Nothing. Just Natalie, tired and distracted, scrolling through her phone while her coffee went cold. At my desk, I couldn't focus. I had a meeting with the superintendent about the Riverside project. We were 3 weeks behind schedule and 12,000 over budget. But all I could think about was that perfume, the way she'd checked her phone at every red light on the drive home from dinner last month. How she'd started closing the bathroom door when she showered. Small things, individually meaningless. Together, they formed a pattern. I'm a project manager. Patterns are what I do. You learn to see them. The subcontractor who's always got an excuse for delays is probably bidding other jobs on your time. The supplier who shorts you on materials once will do it again. The foreman who can't look you in the eye when discussing costs is padding his invoices. People telegraph their intentions. You just have to pay attention. I started paying attention. Thursday, Natalie mentioned she'd be working late again. Inventory night at the practice. I nodded, asked if she wanted me to pick up dinner for the kids. She seemed relieved I wasn't asking questions. I left work at 4:30, told my boss I had a dental appointment. The irony wasn't lost on me. Dr. Patterson's office was in a strip mall off Lamar, sandwiched between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. I parked 3 spaces down from Natalie's Honda and waited. Her shift ended at 5. I knew because I'd called the office 2 days ago, pretending to be a new patient asking about appointment times. At 5:03, she walked out. Alone. She got in her car, checked her phone, smiled at whatever she saw. Then she drove north, away from our house, away from our kids who were at after-school care waiting for pickup. I followed her. I'm not proud of it. That's what people say, right? When they do something that crosses a line, they preface it with, "I'm not proud of it," like that somehow makes it better. But the truth is, I wasn't ashamed either. I was methodical, careful. I kept 2 cars between us. I didn't run yellow lights to keep up. I drove like a man who knew exactly what he was going to find. She pulled into the parking lot of a Hilton Garden Inn on the north side of town. Not cheap, not expensive, the kind of place that doesn't attract attention. Corporate travelers, conference attendees, people passing through, people having affairs. I parked at the far end of the lot and watched her walk into the lobby. She wasn't carrying anything. No overnight bag, no purse except the small crossbody she always used. She moved with purpose, like she'd been there before, knew exactly where she was going. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, engine off. The rational part of my brain, the part that managed timelines and budgets and kept subcontractors honest, told me to go home, to confront her directly, to ask questions before jumping to conclusions. But I'd spent 15 years listening to that rational voice. 15 years being reasonable, being understanding, being the steady one. And where had it gotten me? I got out of the truck. The lobby was generic. Beige carpet, abstract art, the smell of industrial cleaning products and stale coffee. A tired-looking woman at the front desk glanced up, then back down at her computer. I wasn't a guest. I wasn't her problem. I didn't know what I was looking for. A glimpse of Natalie with someone? Confirmation? I stood near the elevators, pretending to check my phone, feeling ridiculous and desperate and angry all at once. Then the elevator doors opened. Natalie stepped out with a man I'd never seen before. Tall, maybe 45, expensive suit, the kind of polished appearance that screamed tech money. They weren't touching, but they stood close, the kind of close that speaks to familiarity, intimacy. They walked past me. Neither of them looked my way. I watched them cross the lobby and sit in the small business center area. 2 chairs, a desk, a printer that probably never worked. They didn't sit like lovers. They sat like colleagues. He pulled out a laptop. She pulled out a tablet I didn't know she owned. They worked. For 45 minutes, I pretended to wait for someone who never came while I watched my wife work on something with a stranger in a hotel business center. They didn't kiss, didn't hold hands, barely smiled. Just worked, intense and focused, occasionally leaning close to look at the same screen. At 6:30 they stood, shook hands, professional, distant. Then he leaned in and whispered something in her ear and she laughed. That same bright, genuine laugh I'd fallen in love with 17 years ago, and touched his arm in a way that was anything but professional. She left first. I waited 5 minutes, then followed the man. He went back upstairs. I watched the elevator numbers. 3rd floor. I should have left. Should have gone home, picked up my kids, confronted my wife. But that methodical part of my brain, the part that knew you don't accuse without evidence, don't make claims you can't support, took over. I approached the front desk. Hey, I'm supposed to meet my colleague, but I forgot his room number. Tall guy, dark suit, just went up to the 3rd floor. The woman looked at me with the practiced skepticism of someone who'd heard every line. I can't give out guest information, sir. Right, of course. Could you just call his room? Tell him Kevin is here? She sighed, typed something. What's the name? That's the problem. We've been emailing, but I'm terrible with names. I know it starts with a D, or maybe a B. Sir, I really can't. Never mind, I'll just text him. Thanks anyway. I walked away before she could respond, pulled out my phone and opened a note app. 3rd floor. Business meeting. Laptop. Tablet. Natalie doesn't own. Not an affair. Something else. Something worse. I got back in my truck and drove to the after-school program. Picked up Emma and Tyler. Asked about their day. Helped with homework. Made dinner. Spaghetti. The easy kind from a jar. Put them to bed. Natalie came home at 8:15. Sorry I'm late, she said, kissing my cheek. Inventory took forever. No problem, I said. Kids are already down. She looked relieved, guilty, tired. I looked at her and saw a stranger. "I'm going to take a shower," she said. While the water ran, I checked her purse. Found the tablet. A Samsung, expensive, nothing on the home screen except a single app I didn't recognize. Password protected. I put it back exactly where I found it. That night, lying next to her in bed, listening to her breathe, I made a decision. Not the hot, angry decision of a betrayed husband. The cold, calculated decision of a project manager who just discovered a serious problem. I was going to find out exactly what my wife was doing. And then I was going to burn it all down. I spent the next 3 days becoming someone I never thought I'd be. Not a detective. I wasn't that dramatic about it. More like an auditor. Someone who cross-references receipts and verifies invoices. Someone who finds discrepancies in documentation and follows the paper trail until the numbers make sense. My job had trained me well for this. 15 years of tracking subcontractors, managing budgets, and catching billing errors had given me a particular set of skills. I knew how to build a timeline. I knew how to collect evidence without contaminating it. I knew how to be thorough. I also knew how to lie to my wife about what I was doing. Working late became my excuse, too. Natalie didn't question it. Why would she? She'd been using the same line for months. There was a certain symmetry to it that would have been funny if it wasn't so bleak. The tablet was my starting point. I couldn't unlock it, but I could photograph it. Document its existence. Note the model number, the unmarked case, the fact that it lived in a zippered pocket of her purse that I'd never noticed before. I went through our phone records next. We had a family plan. 2 lines, everything itemized online. I'd never had a reason to look at the details before. We paid the bill automatically each month. Another checked box in our well-organized life. Natalie's line showed hundreds of text messages to a number I didn't recognize. The timestamps told their own story. Messages sent during her lunch breaks. Messages at 11 at night after I'd gone to bed. Messages at 6 in the morning before I woke up. The number had a 408 area code. San Jose, California. Silicon Valley. That detail sat in my stomach like a stone. I pulled our credit card statements going back 6 months. Natalie had her own card on our account. We'd always kept our finances joint. Another marker of trust, of partnership, of doing things the right way. The charges painted a picture I didn't want to see. Monthly payments to a storage facility I'd never heard of. $127 each month, like clockwork, going back 8 months. The facility was in Round Rock, about 20 minutes north. Charges from FedEx office for printing services and document scanning. Always in amounts under $50. Always on weekdays. 17 separate transactions in the past 6 months. A charge for $2,400 to something called Secure Drop Solutions 3 months ago. I Googled it. Encrypted file transfer service. Enterprise-level security. The kind of thing you'd use if you were moving sensitive data and didn't want anyone tracking it. There were hotel charges too. Not the Hilton Garden Inn where I'd followed her. Those would have been paid by whoever she was meeting. These were different. Airport hotels in San Francisco, twice. A Marriott in San Diego. A Hyatt in Denver. All single-night stays. All on weekdays when she'd told me she was working late or visiting her sister in Houston. I cross-referenced the dates with my calendar. Every single trip corresponded to a day I'd been out of town for work. She'd planned them around my travel schedule. The attention to detail was impressive, in a sick way. I made spreadsheets. I documented everything. I took screenshots and saved PDFs. I created a folder on my laptop labeled 2024 Tax Documents because I knew Natalie would never open it. She hated dealing with tax paperwork. On Thursday night, she came home at her usual time, 6:15. She kissed my cheek and asked about my day. I told her about a supplier issue we'd had on the Riverside project. She nodded and made sympathetic noises while checking her phone. I need to work late tomorrow, she said. Dr. Patterson wants to reorganize the supply closet before the weekend. Sure, I said. No problem. She smiled at me. That same smile I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. It didn't reach her eyes anymore. I wondered when that had changed, whether it had been gradual or if there'd been a specific moment when she'd decided to become someone else. Friday afternoon, I left work at 3. Told my boss I had a dentist appointment. The irony wasn't lost on me. The storage facility in Round Rock was called Safekeep Storage. Generic name. Concrete buildings painted beige. Rows of identical orange doors with combination locks. I didn't know which unit was hers. Didn't know the access code for the gate. I parked across the street at a strip mall and waited. Natalie's car pulled into the facility at 4:30. I watched her punch in a code at the gate. I was too far away to see the numbers. She drove to a unit in the back corner. Building C, Unit 47. She was inside for 20 minutes. When she came out, she was carrying a small cardboard box. She put it in her trunk, locked the unit, and drove away. I followed at a distance. Not too close, just close enough. She didn't go to the dental office. She drove to a Starbucks on the north side, parked, and went inside with the box. The mystery man was already there. Same guy from the hotel, expensive watch, tech industry casual. They sat at a corner table with their backs to the window. I couldn't see what was in the box from my car. But I watched them go through papers, watched him take photos of documents with his phone. Watched Natalie pull out a thumb drive and hand it to him. The exchange took 45 minutes. When they were done, he kept the thumb drive. She kept the papers. They didn't kiss goodbye this time. Just a brief touch of hands across the table. Professional. Transactional. I thought about confronting them right there. Walking into that Starbucks and flipping over their table. Demanding answers. Making a scene. But that wasn't how you managed a project. You didn't react emotionally when you found a problem. You documented it. You gathered all the facts. You built an airtight case before you brought it to stakeholders. So I took photos instead. Long-range shots through the Starbucks window. The two of them at the table. The box between them. The moment she handed over the thumb drive. My phone's camera wasn't great at that distance, but it was good enough. You could see faces. You could see the exchange. I had one more stop to make. The dental office where Natalie supposedly worked was in a medical plaza off Research Boulevard. I'd been there exactly twice. Once when she'd first gotten the job, and once 3 years ago when Emma had chipped a tooth and Natalie had brought her in after school. I parked in the lot and went inside. The receptionist looked up from her computer. Young woman, maybe 25. Name tag said Jessica. Hi, I said. I'm here to see my wife. Natalie Walsh? She's one of the hygienists. Jessica's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. I'm sorry, we don't have anyone by that name working here. You sure? She's been here for years. Natalie Walsh, dark hair, about 5'6". I've been here for 3 years, Jessica said carefully. We only have 2 hygienists, Brenda and Kelly. No Natalie. I nodded slowly. My mistake, Must have the wrong office. No problem. Have a good day. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, staring at the building. 15 years. We'd been married for 15 years. She'd been lying about her job the entire time. I sat in my truck in the dental office parking lot for 20 minutes after the receptionist's words landed. The engine ticked as it cooled. My hands stayed locked on the steering wheel. 15 years. She'd been lying about her job, her entire professional identity, for our entire marriage. The math was simple, brutal. We met in 2008, got married in 2009. She'd told me then she was a dental hygienist, had been for a couple years already. Showed me her work schedule, complained about difficult patients. Came home smelling like that specific clinical mint smell. I'd never questioned it. Why would I? But Dr. Patterson's office had no record of her. Ever. I pulled out my phone and started searching. Found 3 other dental practices within a 10-mile radius of our house. Called each one. Asked for Natalie Walsh, dental hygienist. No one by that name here. Sorry, we don't have a Natalie on staff. Let me check our records. No, nothing. The 4th practice, I didn't even bother. Instead, I opened my laptop and accessed the shared bank account. Our main checking, the one where both our paychecks supposedly got deposited. I scrolled back through the deposits. Mine came every 2 weeks like clockwork. Direct deposit from the construction firm, with the company name right there in the transaction details. Hers came monthly. Always the same amount, $3,200. Always listed as external transfer from an account I didn't recognize. No employer name. No tax withholdings that I could see in the transaction description. I'd never looked closely before. Money came in, bills got paid, life continued. That's how it worked when you trusted someone. I pulled up our tax returns. Had to log into the storage account where I kept digital copies. Last year's 1040 showed her income as $3,400 from Walsh Consulting Services, a sole proprietorship. Self-employment tax, Schedule C, the whole setup. Walsh Consulting Services. I typed it into Google. Nothing. No website, no LinkedIn company page, no business registration I could find. Search the Texas Secretary of State Business Database. No entity registered under that name. She'd created a fake business to explain her income on our taxes. The clinical mint smell. I'd noticed it for years, never questioned it. You could buy that scent anywhere. Air fresheners, hand soap, mouthwash. Spray it on your clothes before coming home and your husband believes you spent the day cleaning teeth. My phone buzzed. Text from Natalie. Running late tonight. Don't wait up for dinner. I stared at the message. Wondered where she actually was. What she was actually doing. Who she was actually meeting. The mystery man from Silicon Valley. The encrypted file services. The storage unit. The hidden tablet. The California trips. And now this. No real job. At least, not the one she'd claimed. I needed to see inside that storage unit. The facility was one of those sprawling complexes off the highway. Hundreds of identical orange doors arranged in long rows, surrounded by chain link and security cameras. I'd driven past it 1,000 times without really seeing it. I parked 3 buildings away from Building C and waited. Natalie had visited yesterday around 2 p.m., so I didn't expect her back today. But I wasn't taking chances. The lock on Unit 47 was commercial grade. No way I was getting through it without bolt cutters, and the cameras would catch that immediately. I needed her to open it while I watched, or I needed to follow her inside somehow. Or I needed a different approach entirely. I called the storage facility's main office. A bored-sounding woman answered on the third ring. "Yeah, hi," I said. "My wife rents a unit there. Natalie Walsh, Unit 47. She asked me to grab something, but I can't remember the gate code. Can you help me out?" "Sorry, sir. Security policy. The renter has to call personally to authorize access." "Right, of course. What if I just meet her there? Do I need my own code or can I come in with her?" "You can come in when she opens the gate. Just make sure you're in the same vehicle or following right behind." "Perfect. Thanks." I hung up. That wouldn't work. She'd see me immediately. I sat there thinking it through like a project timeline. What were my actual objectives? What did I need to accomplish and in what order? 1. Confirm what's in the storage unit. 2. Identify who the mystery man is and what exactly they're exchanging. 3. Understand what Natalie's real job is, what she actually does that generates $200 monthly. 4. Gather enough evidence to protect myself and the kids. 5. Decide what to do with that evidence. The order mattered. I couldn't confront her without knowing the full scope. Couldn't make decisions without understanding what I was actually dealing with. She'd been lying for 15 years. Whatever this was, it was sophisticated, planned, sustained. People don't maintain that level of deception for something small. My phone buzzed again. Different number, one I didn't recognize. Local area code. I answered. "Hello? Mr. Walsh? This is Detective Amy Brennan with Austin PD. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" My stomach dropped. "About what?" "We're investigating some fraudulent activity in the area. Your name came up in connection with a business entity, Walsh Consulting Services. Are you familiar with that company?" The world tilted slightly. My wife runs that. It's her business." "I see. And what services does this business provide?" "I'm not entirely sure. Consulting. She works from home mostly." "Uh-huh." Papers rustled on her end. "Mr. Walsh, has your wife ever mentioned working with technology companies? Specifically companies in the semiconductor or defense contracting sectors?" "The semiconductor industry. Silicon Valley. Defense contracting." "No," I said slowly. "She told me she's a dental hygienist." Silence on the other end. Then, "I think we should meet in person. Are you available this afternoon?" Detective Brennan's office was in a building downtown that smelled like burned coffee and recycled air. She was younger than I expected, maybe 35, dark hair pulled back, sharp eyes that didn't miss anything. She offered me coffee. I declined. "Mr. Walsh, I'm going to be direct with you. We've been investigating a corporate espionage case for the past 6 months. Multiple technology companies have reported stolen intellectual property, specifically semiconductor designs and defense-related patents. The thefts are sophisticated, coordinated, and extremely damaging." I said nothing. Waited. "We've identified several individuals involved in the theft and sale of this material. One of them is a man named Brian Foster. He's a corporate intelligence consultant. That's the polite term. The accurate term is industrial spy." She slid a photograph across the desk. The mystery man from the Hilton. From Starbucks. Mid-40s, expensive suit, Silicon Valley confidence. "We've been surveilling Mr. Foster for 3 months. He's been meeting regularly with several individuals who work at tech companies here in Austin. One of those individuals is your wife." The room felt very small suddenly. "We have photographs of the meeting. We have records of encrypted file transfers between accounts we've traced to both of them." We have financial transactions that suggest she's being paid substantial sums for information. Detective Brennan leaned forward. Mr. Walsh, I need to know what you know about your wife's activities, and I need to know if you've been involved in any way. I haven't, I said. My voice sounded distant. I just found out 3 hours ago that she doesn't actually work as a dental hygienist. I've been married to her for 15 years and I don't know what she really does. Brennan studied my face. You're telling me you had no idea? I'm telling you I've spent the last week following her because something felt wrong. I found the storage unit, the encrypted file services on our credit card, the meetings with Foster. But I didn't know what it meant until right now. She pulled out a legal pad. Tell me everything you've observed. Every detail, every transaction, every meeting. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told Detective Brennan everything. We sat in that windowless room for 3 hours. She recorded the whole thing, 2 digital recorders running simultaneously, plus handwritten notes. Every detail I'd documented over the past weeks, the photographs, the credit card statements, the discovery that my wife had never worked where she claimed, the fake business entity, the meetings with Brian Foster. She listened without interrupting much, occasionally asking clarifying questions. What time exactly did you observe the exchange? Can you describe the thumb drive? Did you hear any part of their conversation? When I finished, she sat back and studied me for a long moment. Mr. Walsh, I need to be very direct with you about something, she said. You're not in legal jeopardy here. You didn't know what your wife was doing, and frankly, the documentation you've provided makes that crystal clear. But we're going to need your continued cooperation. What does that mean? It means we'd like you to act normally. Go home. Don't confront your wife. Don't let her know you've spoken with us. She leaned forward. We've been building a case against Foster and his network for 18 months. Your wife is part of that network, but she's not the only one. If she realizes we're closing in, she'll warn the others. The weight in my chest grew heavier. How long? A week, maybe 2. We're coordinating with the FBI. This crosses state lines and involves classified technology. Once we have all our warrants lined up, we'll move simultaneously on everyone involved. And I just go home? Pretend everything's fine? I know it's asking a lot. Her expression softened slightly. But if you confront her now, evidence disappears. People run. We've seen it before. I thought about Emma and Tyler, about what would happen when federal agents showed up at our house. My kids. We'll coordinate the timing to minimize impact on them, Brennan said. Ideally, we'd execute the search warrant during school hours. You'd be present. We're not interested in traumatizing children. That's generous of you. I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. She didn't react to the tone. In the meantime, I need you to sign some documents. Consent to use the evidence you've gathered. Acknowledgement that you're cooperating voluntarily. And we'll need the actual physical evidence, the photographs, the credit card statements, everything. I made copies. Of course you did. For the first time, something like approval crossed her face. You're very thorough, Mr. Walsh. That's going to make this much easier. I drove home in a fog. The Austin traffic moved around me. People heading to normal jobs, normal lives, normal problems. I merged onto I-35 and tried to comprehend what the next 2 weeks would look like. Go home. Act normal. Pretend I didn't know my entire marriage was a lie. The house was empty when I arrived. Natalie's car was gone, probably picking up Tyler from preschool. I stood in our kitchen and looked at the refrigerator with its cheerful magnets and family photos. Emma's latest art project, a coupon for pizza, the grocery list in Natalie's handwriting, milk, eggs, bread, coffee, steal corporate secrets, betray national security, destroy family. I made myself laugh at that. Better than crying. My phone buzzed. Text from Natalie. Running late, taking Tyler to the park. Home by 5:30. Can you start dinner? I stared at the message, the casual domesticity of it, the assumption that I'd just comply, that I was still the reliable husband who handled things. I typed back, "Sure, pasta, okay?" Her response came immediately. "Perfect. You're the best." 3 heart emojis. I set the phone down carefully, afraid I might throw it against the wall. Natalie came home at 5:45 with Tyler in tow. He ran to me immediately, showing me a pine cone he'd found at the park. I admired it appropriately while Natalie kicked off her shoes and set her purse on the counter. The purse that had contained the hidden tablet that I'd photographed and documented and handed over to law enforcement. "Something smells good," she said, moving to the stove. "You used the good marinara. Seemed like a good night for it." She smiled at me. That same smile I'd fallen for 15 years ago. "Rough day?" "Long meeting. You?" "Oh, Mrs. Patterson had 3 cavities. Spent an hour doing scaling." She wrinkled her nose. "I need a shower before dinner." I watched her walk down the hallway, listened to the bathroom door close, the water starting. Mrs. Patterson. Dr. Patterson's wife, presumably. Another layer of the lie, casually deployed. Did she have a whole fictional roster of patients? Did she rehearse these details? Tyler tugged on my sleeve. "Daddy, is the pasta ready?" "Almost, buddy. Go wash your hands." I served dinner at 6. Emma came down from her room, earbuds dangling around her neck. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten thousands of meals together, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays, where Natalie and I had discussed mortgage refinancing and summer vacation plans. "How was school?" Natalie asked Emma. "Fine. We're doing state reports. I got Colorado." "That's exciting. Lots of mountains." "I guess." Emma pushed pasta around her plate. "Can I go to Ashley's house this weekend?" "We'll see. I might have to work Saturday." I looked up. "On a Saturday?" Natalie met my eyes without hesitation. "Dr. Patterson has a family emergency. Asked if I could cover for his hygienist who usually works weekends." "That's inconvenient." "It's part of the job," she shrugged. "The money's good for weekend work." The money. Right. The money that came from Walsh Consulting Services, that shell entity funneling payments for stolen corporate secrets. "What time?" I asked. "Probably 9 to 3. I'll be home for dinner." I nodded and returned to my pasta. Across the table, Tyler was making airplane noises, flying his fork through the air. Emma was texting under the table, thinking I couldn't see. Normal. Everything completely normal. Except my wife was a corporate spy, and in less than 2 weeks, federal agents would be raiding our house. That night, lying in bed next to her, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how many other nights I'd done exactly this. How many times had she come home from selling stolen patents and climbed into bed beside me? How many times had we made love while she was actively betraying everything I thought we were? "You're quiet tonight," Natalie said in the darkness. "Tired." The Riverside Project? She even knew the names of my projects. Of course she did. She'd been maintaining this cover for 15 years. She'd learned to ask the right questions, show the right interest. "Yeah, timeline's getting tight." "You'll figure it out," You always do. Her hand found mine under the covers. That's what I love about you. You're so steady. Steady, reliable, predictable, easy to deceive. Thanks, I managed. She shifted closer, her head on my shoulder. Within minutes, her breathing deepened into sleep. I lay there feeling the weight of her against me and thought about Detective Brennan's words. Act normally, don't let her know. I could do that. I'd been doing it our entire marriage, apparently, living normally while reality operated on a completely different frequency. What was 2 more weeks? They say the worst part of knowing is the pretending. But that's not quite right. The worst part is realizing how good you've gotten at it. Thursday morning. Emma needed lunch money. Tyler couldn't find his science folder. Natalie kissed my cheek on her way out the door, coffee thermos in hand, already scrolling through her phone. The same domestic choreography we'd performed 1,000 times before. Except now I knew the phone contained coordination with federal criminals. The thermos was probably heading to a meeting about stolen defense patents. And the kiss, that casual brush of lips against stubble, came from someone who'd constructed an entirely fictional identity for 15 years. Love you, she called from the garage. Love you too, I said automatically. The door closed. I stood in the kitchen, Emma eating cereal, Tyler finally locating his folder under the couch, and felt the weight of those words settle somewhere behind my sternum. Muscle memory. Pavlovian response. The phrase had lost all meaning, become pure reflex, like saying, bless you, after a sneeze. Detective Brennan had been clear. Act normal, maintain routine, give them time to coordinate with the FBI. 1 to 2 weeks, she'd said. Federal cases moved slowly, required careful orchestration. They needed to identify all parties involved, secure warrants for multiple jurisdictions, time the arrests to prevent anyone from fleeing. So I went to work, reviewed blueprints for the Mueller Development Project, attended meetings about permit delays and supply chain issues, responded to emails, made decisions about rebar specifications and concrete curing schedules, the mundane machinery of my actual legitimate career. Around 10:30, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Trevor Walsh. Mr. Walsh, this is Special Agent David Keller, FBI. Detective Brennan gave me your number. Do you have a moment to speak privately? I stepped out of the construction trailer into the parking lot. March sun, warm on my shoulders. Traffic noise from I-35 in the distance. I'm alone. Good. I'm the lead agent on the case involving your wife and Brian Foster. I want to thank you for your cooperation and explain what happens next. His voice carried the flat, professional tone of someone who'd delivered this speech before. Probably dozens of times. Hundreds, maybe. How many cases like this did the FBI handle? How many ordinary people discovered their spouses were federal criminals? I'm listening. We've been investigating Foster for 18 months. He runs a sophisticated network that targets semiconductor companies, defense contractors, anyone working on classified or proprietary technology. Your wife is one of several operatives he employs to penetrate these companies. Several operatives. Not even the only one. Just another employee in an espionage organization chart. What exactly does she do? Based on our investigation, she works as a contract paralegal specializing in patent law. The companies think they're hiring temporary legal support for patent filings, intellectual property documentation, that sort of thing. It gives her access to technical specifications, design documents, everything needed to understand what's being developed. A paralegal. Not a dental hygienist, but Close enough in terms of plausibility. Professional, but not too specialized. The kind of job that explained decent income without requiring extensive dinner party explanations. Boring enough that I'd never ask detailed questions. She has credentials for this. Forged, but high quality. Law degree from Texas State, paralegal certification, professional references, all fabricated. The companies run background checks, but her documentation passes initial screening. She typically works 3 to 6 month contracts, extracts what Foster needs, then moves on before anyone notices irregularities. I watched a cement truck lumber past, its drum rotating slowly, everything moving at normal speed while my understanding of reality continued its complete inversion. How does the money work? Foster pays her through various shell companies. The payments look like legitimate consulting fees, complete with 1099 forms and tax documentation. Your wife files taxes on this income every year. The IRS has no idea it's proceeds from espionage. Of course she filed taxes. Can't have the government asking questions about unreported income. Al Capone went down for tax evasion, not murder. Natalie would have known that. Where does Foster sell what she steals? Multiple buyers, Chinese technology firms primarily, but also competitors in the US and Europe. He's not ideological, purely mercenary. Whoever pays the most gets the information. And the storage unit Detective Brennan mentioned? We obtained a warrant yesterday. It contains encrypted hard drives, burner phones, falsified credentials for multiple identities, and approximately $200,000 in cash. We're still analyzing the drives, but preliminary review shows patent documentation from at least 6 companies over the past 4 years. $200,000. Just sitting in a storage unit off Highway 183. Emergency money, probably. Escape fund in case everything collapsed. Except it had collapsed, and she didn't know yet. When do you arrest them? Tuesday morning. We're coordinating with FBI field offices in San Francisco and Seattle to arrest Foster's other operatives simultaneously. We need everyone in custody before word spreads. If Foster or any of his network realizes we're moving, they'll run. These people have resources, fake passports, overseas contacts. Tuesday, 5 days away. 5 more days of serving dinner and asking about her day and lying next to her in bed. What do you need from me? Exactly what you're doing. Maintain normal routine. Don't confront her. Don't let on that anything's changed. I know that's difficult, but it's essential. If she suspects anything, she'll contact Foster, and we lose the element of surprise. What happens Tuesday? 6 a.m. Agents will arrest your wife at your home. We'll execute search warrants simultaneously at your residence and the storage unit. Foster will be arrested at his apartment in San Jose. We're also arresting 3 other operatives in different cities. My kids will be there. The words came out harder than I intended. Emma's 8. Tyler's 6. They don't need to see their mother arrested by federal agents. Silence on the line. Then, I understand. Can you arrange for them to be elsewhere that morning? My mother lives in Round Rock. I can have them stay there Monday night. Tell them it's a special grandmother sleepover. That'll be best. I'm sorry, Mr. Walsh. I know this is... He paused, searching for adequate language. Extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. Like describing a building collapse as somewhat problematic. After you arrest her, what happens? She'll be transported to federal holding, arraigned within 24 hours. Given the nature of the charges, economic espionage, theft of trade secrets, conspiracy, Bail is unlikely. The evidence is substantial. Your documentation, the storage unit contents, our surveillance, financial records. The U.S. attorney is confident about conviction. How long? Federal sentencing guidelines for economic espionage involving national security interests. We're looking at 15 to 25 years. Foster will face more, given his role organizing the network. The companies will also file civil suits for damages. We're talking billions in stolen intellectual property. 25 years. Emma would be 33. Tyler, 31. Their mother would be elderly if she got out at all. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no grief, just a vast emptiness where emotions should have been. Mr. Walsh, I need to ask, are you doing okay? We have resources, counseling services for family members affected by. I'm fine. If you need to talk to someone, I said I'm fine. Too sharp. I softened my tone. I appreciate the offer, but I'm handling it. Another pause. All right, I'll be in touch as we get closer to Tuesday. If anything changes with your wife's behavior, any indication she's suspicious, call me immediately, day or night. He gave me his direct number. I saved it under Dave, electrician. The call ended. I stood in the parking lot, phone in hand, watching normal people do normal work. A foreman shouting instructions, workers unloading rebar. The project engineer arguing with a subcontractor about drainage specifications. The ordinary machinery of legitimate enterprise. My phone buzzed again. Text from Natalie. Grabbing dinner with colleague after work. Home by 8. Love you. Colleague. Probably Foster. Probably discussing which patents to steal next, which companies to infiltrate, how to launder the proceeds. I typed back, sounds good. See you tonight. 5 more days of this. I could manage 5 more days. The weekend arrived like a slow-moving storm. Saturday morning, I made pancakes while Natalie scrolled through her phone at the kitchen table. Emma wanted chocolate chips. Tyler wanted his cut into dinosaur shapes. Normal requests from normal kids who had no idea their mother would be in federal custody in 72 hours. These are perfect, Natalie said, pouring syrup over her stack. She smiled at me, that same smile I'd fallen for 15 years ago. You're getting really good at these. I wondered if she practiced this in mirrors, the loving wife routine, the grateful compliment. Every word calculated to maintain the illusion. Thanks, I said. My voice sounded normal. I'd been practicing too. Agent Keller had called Friday night with additional instructions. Don't change any routines. Don't access the storage unit again. Don't do anything that might signal awareness. The network had protocols for compromised operations, dead drops, emergency communications, extraction procedures. If Natalie suspected federal involvement, she could disappear within hours. So I made pancakes. I smiled back. I played my role in this theater of normalcy. Tyler knocked over his orange juice, reaching for the syrup. The liquid spread across the table in a bright puddle, soaking into the placemat Natalie's mother had given us 3 Christmases ago. Natalie jumped up, grabbing paper towels, and I saw her phone light up with a notification. She glanced at it. Her expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture, a slight tension in her shoulders. I need to run to the office for a few hours, she said, wiping up the juice. Dr. Patterson has a patient emergency Monday morning and needs me to prep some files. On Saturday, I kept my tone casual, mildly curious. Implant surgery, really complex case. She was already moving toward the bedroom. I'll be back by lunch. The kids barely looked up from their dinosaur pancakes. This was normal too. Mom leaving for work at odd hours, Dad holding down the fort. We'd built this pattern over years. I waited until her car pulled out of the driveway, then called the number Agent Keller had given me. She just left, I said. Claimed a work emergency. We're on her. His voice was calm, professional. Don't worry. We have a surveillance team in position. Don't worry, as if that were possible. I spent the next 3 hours at a soccer field watching Emma's team lose 4-1 to a group of 8-year-olds who played like they'd been training since birth. Tyler collected dandelions along the sideline and presented them to me like trophies. Other parents chatted about weekend plans, school fundraisers, the new Italian restaurant opening downtown. Normal conversations. Normal lives. My phone buzzed during the second half. A text from Natalie. Running longer than expected. Grab lunch without me? I typed back, no problem. Pizza, good for the kids? Perfect. Love you. Those last 2 words sat on my screen like evidence. I wondered how many times she'd typed them while coordinating dead drops or negotiating prices for stolen patents. Love as camouflage. Love as operational security. We got pizza. Emma wanted pepperoni. Tyler picked off all his cheese and ate only the bread, which defeated the entire purpose of pizza, but whatever. I had bigger problems than my son's eating habits. Natalie came home at 2:47 p.m. I'd been tracking time in precise increments, counting down to Tuesday morning. 57 hours and 13 minutes. She looked tired. Not guilty, not nervous, just tired. She kicked off her shoes in the entryway and collapsed onto the couch next to Tyler, who was watching cartoons about talking dogs who solved mysteries. Long morning? I asked. You have no idea. She closed her eyes, head tilted back against the cushions. Sometimes I think about just quitting. Finding something easier. The audacity of it stunned me. She was talking about quitting her fake job at a fake dental office while actually contemplating leaving her real career as an industrial spy. The layers of deception made my head hurt. You've been doing it a long time, I said carefully. 15 years. She opened her eyes looking at me. Same routine, same work, same everything. Sometimes I wonder what else I could have done with my life. I wondered if this was genuine, some fragment of real feeling breaking through the performance. Or if this too was calculated, another layer of the cover identity she'd built. You're good at what you do, I said. The truth, just not the way she'd interpret it. She smiled, sad and distant. Yeah, I guess I am. Sunday unfolded with the same careful choreography. Church in the morning, Natalie's idea, something about the kids needing moral foundation. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so bleak. We sat in a pew near the back while the pastor talked about honesty and integrity and living according to your values. Natalie sang the hymns. She bowed her head during prayers. She shook hands with the other parishioners during the peace offering, smiling and asking about their weeks. I watched her perform and wondered if she believed any of it. If some part of her brain had compartmentalized so completely that she could genuinely feel righteous while stealing military technology. Or if she was just that good at the con. After church, we took the kids to Zilker Park. Emma wanted to fly the kite we'd bought last spring and never used. Tyler wanted to feed the ducks, even though the signs explicitly said not to feed the ducks. We compromised. Kite first, then watching the ducks without feeding them. The kite was a disaster. Not enough wind, too many trees, and my complete lack of kite flying expertise. Emma got frustrated after 20 minutes and declared kites stupid. Tyler agreed, having lost interest after the first failed launch. So we watched the ducks instead. Natalie sat next to me on the bench, our kids throwing rocks into the water and arguing about which duck was the fastest. A normal Sunday afternoon. A normal family. "I'm glad we did this," Natalie said quietly. "We should do more stuff like this. As a family." "Yeah," I said. "We should." 39 hours. That night, after the kids were asleep, Natalie initiated sex. Not unusual. Our intimate life had been consistent, if not passionate, another part of the normal marriage framework we maintained. But knowing what I knew, it felt different. Transactional. Another box to check in the operational playbook. I went through the motions. She seemed satisfied. Afterward, she curled against me, her head on my chest, her breathing gradually slowing toward sleep. "Trevor?" Her voice was soft, almost vulnerable. "Yeah? Do you ever think about what would have happened if we'd never met? Like, what our lives would be like?" The question caught me off guard. "Sometimes." "Why?" "I don't know, just thinking." She was quiet for a moment. "I can't imagine my life without you. Without the kids, this whole life we built." I stared at the ceiling, her words hanging in the darkness. Was this guilt? Nostalgia? Or just more performance art from someone who'd been lying for 15 years? "Me neither," I said. Also true, in its way. She fell asleep a few minutes later. I listened to her breathe, felt the weight of her against my side, and counted down the hours. 29 hours and 43 minutes until federal agents would arrive at our door with arrest warrants. Until this carefully constructed fiction collapsed into documented fact. Until the woman sleeping peacefully against me became defendant number 1 in a major espionage case. I didn't sleep much that night, just lay there in the dark, watching the ceiling fan rotate slowly overhead, thinking about pancakes and soccer games and kites that wouldn't fly and all the small moments that constituted a normal life built on absolutely nothing real. The alarm went off at 5:45 a.m. Tuesday morning. I'd been awake for hours, lying there in the dark, listening to Natalie breathe beside me, counting down the minutes. Somewhere out there, federal agents were putting on tactical vests, checking equipment, coordinating across multiple cities for simultaneous arrests. In 15 minutes, our front door would be the center of a carefully orchestrated takedown. I got up quietly, same as always. Showered, dressed for work. Went downstairs and started the coffee maker. Everything normal, everything routine. The kitchen window faced the street. At 5:58 a.m., I saw the first black SUV turn onto our block. No sirens, no lights. Just 3 vehicles parking at measured intervals, one in front of our house, one blocking the driveway, one at the corner. Professional. Efficient. The kind of operation that's been planned down to the second. I poured my coffee. My hands were steady. At exactly 6 a.m., someone knocked on the door. Not pounded. Knocked. Firm but controlled. The kind of knock that says, "We're giving you the courtesy of answering before we use the battering ram we brought just in case." I walked to the door and opened it. Special Agent Keller stood on my front porch with 5 other agents behind him. He wore a navy windbreaker with FBI in yellow letters across the chest. The others were positioned strategically, 2 flanking the door, 2 moving around the side of the house, one staying back with clear line of sight to the upstairs windows. "Mr. Walsh," Keller said. His voice was quiet, professional. "We have a warrant for Natalie Walsh's arrest. Is she inside?" "Upstairs," I said. "Bedroom, still asleep." He nodded. "Please step outside, sir. We'll need you to wait with Agent Brennan while we execute the warrant. I saw her then, Detective Brennan standing by one of the SUVs. She'd been my contact through this whole thing, the one who'd first told me what my wife really was. Now she was here for the endgame. I stepped onto the porch. 3 agents moved past me into the house, footsteps heavy on the stairs. Keller stayed in the doorway, coordinating through an earpiece. "Kids?" he asked me. "Still asleep. Back bedrooms, away from the primary." He spoke into his radio. 2 minors on site, ages 8 and 6, bedrooms clear of the primary target. I walked down to where Brennan waited. She had 2 cups of coffee from somewhere, probably a drive-through on the way here. She handed me one. "You okay?" she asked. "No," I said. We stood there in my driveway at 6 in the morning while federal agents arrested my wife. The sun was just starting to come up. A neighbor's dog barked. Someone's sprinkler system kicked on down the block. Upstairs, I heard voices. Natalie's voice, confused and sharp. What is this? Trevor? Trevor." I didn't answer, didn't move. "Natalie Walsh, you're under arrest for violations of the Economic Espionage Act, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit industrial espionage." Keller's voice carried through the open door, clear and formal. "You have the right to remain silent." She was still protesting when they brought her down. 2 agents flanking her, hands cuffed behind her back. She was wearing the oversized t-shirt she slept in, bare feet, hair messy. She looked small, confused. When she saw me standing in the driveway, her expression changed. "Trevor? What, you knew? You knew they were coming?" I looked at her. This woman I'd been married to for 15 years, the mother of my children, the person I'd built my entire adult life around. "Yeah," I said. "I knew." Something flickered across her face. Not anger, not fear. Something closer to resignation. Like she'd been waiting for this moment and was almost relieved it had finally arrived. "How long?" she asked. 5 days. They were walking her toward the SUV. She twisted back to look at me. "The kids, Trevor, please, the kids are my priority," I said. "Not yours. Not anymore." Agent Keller appeared beside me. "We're taking her to the federal building downtown for processing. You'll need to arrange care for your children. We'll have agents here for approximately 2 more hours, executing the search warrant on your residence." I understand. More vehicles were arriving. Unmarked vans. People in FBI windbreakers carrying equipment cases. They'd be going through everything. Computers, phones, files, the storage unit, all of it. Building their case. Natalie was in the SUV now. Through the tinted window, I could see her silhouette. She was crying. I felt nothing. Brennan touched my arm. "There are victim services available for you and your kids. Counseling, support groups, people who understand what it's like when your spouse turns out to be a spy," I said. "That a common enough thing for support groups?" "More common than you'd think," she said quietly. "Not exactly this, but betrayal on this scale. People who built lives with someone who was lying about everything. Yeah, there are resources." Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. She was wearing her favorite pajamas, the ones with the unicorns. "Daddy, what's happening? Why are all these people here?" I walked up to her, knelt down so we were eye level. Behind me, I could hear the SUV with Natalie pulling away. I didn't turn to watch it go. "Hey, sweetheart," I said. "Something's happened with Mommy. She had to go with these people for a while, but you're safe, okay? You and Tyler are completely safe." "Where's Mommy going?" How do you explain to an 8-year-old that her mother is a corporate spy facing federal espionage charges? That the woman who packed her lunches and helped with homework and read bedtime stories was simultaneously stealing patents and selling classified technology to foreign competitors? She's in trouble, I said. Grown-up trouble. She did some things that were against the law, and now she has to answer for that. Emma's eyes went wide. Is she going to jail? Probably, yeah. For how long? I don't know yet, baby, but we're going to be okay. You, me, and Tyler. We're going to figure this out together. Tyler appeared behind his sister, dragging his stuffed dinosaur. He was 6. Too young to really understand what was happening, but old enough to know something was very wrong. I'm hungry, he said. I almost laughed. The absurdity of it. Federal agents swarming our house, their mother in handcuffs being driven to a detention facility, and Tyler wanted breakfast. Okay, I said. Let's get you breakfast. I made pancakes while FBI agents photographed our living room. Poured orange juice while someone bagged Natalie's laptop as evidence. Helped Tyler cut his food into bite-sized pieces while an agent asked me questions about our financial accounts. The kids ate. I answered questions. The sun came up over our suburban neighborhood, and life continued because that's what it does. It continues. Agent Keller found me in the kitchen around 8 a.m. We're nearly finished with the initial sweep. We'll need to take several items for evidence. Computers, phones, files from her home office. You'll receive an itemized list. Fine. There will be an arraignment this afternoon, 2 p.m. She'll be formally charged and bail will be set. Given the nature of the charges and flight risk assessment, I expect the prosecution will argue for remand. Meaning? Meaning she'll likely be held without bail pending trial. I nodded. Good. He studied me for a moment. Mr. Walsh, you should know, this is going to be a major case. High profile. The companies involved, the scope of the espionage, the foreign connections. It's going to attract significant media attention. I figured. You might want to consider legal representation for yourself and your children. Protection of your interests separate from your wife's case. Already have a call scheduled with a divorce attorney, I said. This afternoon, after the arraignment. Smart. He handed me a card. My direct line. If you remember anything else, if she tries to contact you, anything, call me immediately. I took the card. Added it to the collection I'd been building. Detective Brennan's, the FBI field office, victim services, a family law attorney someone had recommended. My life, reduced to business cards and evidence bags. By 10 a.m., they were gone. The house was quiet except for the TV in the living room where I'd set the kids up with cartoons. I stood in the kitchen and looked around at the space that had been our home. Everything looked the same. Same counters, same refrigerator with the kids' artwork magnets, same coffee maker I'd used this morning, but it was all different now. All of it built on lies, on a foundation that had never existed. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is attorney Janet Pierce. Detective Brennan gave me your information. I handle cases like yours. Family law with criminal complications. Can you come in today at 3 p.m.? I typed back, yes. Then I went into the living room and sat with my kids. Emma leaned against my shoulder. Tyler climbed into my lap, still clutching his dinosaur. Is Mommy coming back? Emma asked. Not for a long time, I said. Are you sad? I thought about that. Really thought about it. Was I sad, angry, relieved? I'd spent 5 days knowing this was coming, preparing for it, and now that it had happened, I felt... I don't know what I feel, I told her honestly, but I know we're going to be okay. She nodded against my shoulder. On the TV, cartoon characters chased each other through impossible scenarios. Everything resolved in 22 minutes. Good guys won. Bad guys learned their lessons. Credits rolled. If only. The trial lasted 6 weeks. I attended every day, sitting in the gallery with a notepad, documenting everything the same way I documented the evidence that put Natalie there. The federal prosecutor was a woman named Rebecca Stone, early 40s, precise, methodical. She laid out the case piece by piece like assembling a building from blueprints. Natalie's defense attorney tried to argue entrapment, coercion, diminished capacity. None of it stuck. The evidence was overwhelming. My photographs. The storage unit contents. Financial records showing payments totaling over $800,000 across 4 years. Testimony from company executives about stolen patents worth billions. Brian Foster took a plea deal and testified against her. Turned out there were 11 operatives in his network. Natalie had been one of the most productive. She never looked at me during the trial. Not once. She'd stare at the defense table, at the judge, at her hands folded in her lap, but never at the gallery where I sat. Maybe it was shame. Maybe strategy. I stopped trying to figure out what she was thinking. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s who'd spent 20 minutes lecturing about betrayal of public trust and national security, gave Natalie 18 years in federal prison. With good behavior, she might be out in 14. Emma would be 22. Tyler, 20. I felt nothing when the sentence came down. Just watched the bailiff lead her away in shackles. Watched her finally glance back at the gallery one last time. Our eyes met for maybe 2 seconds. Then she was gone. The divorce was simpler than I expected. Natalie didn't contest anything. Signed whatever papers her attorney put in front of her. I got full custody, the house, everything. Her assets, what wasn't seized by the government, went into a trust for the kids' education. Money from espionage paying for college. The irony wasn't lost on me. Janet Pierce, my attorney, was efficient and direct. Most of my clients in your situation want revenge, she told me during one of our meetings. They want to hurt their spouse the way they've been hurt. But you're different. You just want it done. Revenge already happened, I said. 18 years in federal prison is pretty definitive. She nodded. Fair enough. The media attention was intense for about 3 months. Austin spy ring broken dominated local news. National outlets picked it up. A few reporters camped outside our house until I threatened legal action. Eventually, they moved on to other stories. Other scandals. Life has a way of continuing whether you're ready or not. Emma struggled the most. 8 years old when your mother gets arrested for espionage. There's no parenting book for that. She had nightmares, started seeing a therapist twice a week, asked questions I didn't always know how to answer. Did mommy ever love us? She asked one night, about 6 months after the arrest. We were sitting on her bed. I'd just finished reading her a chapter from some book about magical horses. Normal bedtime routine in a life that was anything but normal. I think she did, I said carefully, in whatever way she was capable of loving anyone. But she lied about everything. Yeah, she did. So how do you know the love was real? I didn't have a good answer for that. Still don't. Maybe some part of Natalie genuinely cared about us. Maybe the whole thing was performance art. Maybe it was both simultaneously. Maybe she'd been lying so long she couldn't tell the difference anymore between the cover identity and whatever person existed underneath. I don't know if it was real, I told Emma, but I know my love for you is real, and that's what matters now. She thought about that, then nodded. Okay. Tyler had an easier time, being younger. He asked about mommy occasionally, usually prompted by seeing other kids with their mothers at school events. I kept my answers simple. Mommy made bad choices. Mommy has to be away for a long time. We're going to be okay without her. He seemed to accept it. Kids are resilient that way. They adapt to new normal faster than adults. I sold the house 18 months after Natalie's arrest. Couldn't keep living in a space built on lies. We moved to a smaller place in a different neighborhood. Fresh start, new schools, distance from the memories. Work became my anchor. The construction projects, the timelines, the problems with concrete suppliers and permit delays. Things that had clear solutions. Problems you could actually solve. I got promoted to senior project manager. More responsibility, better pay. Threw myself into it because what else was I going to do? The alternative was sitting around thinking about 15 years of marriage that never actually existed, and that path led nowhere good. My mother helped with the kids, picked them up from school when I had late meetings, stayed over when I had to travel for work. She never said, "I told you so," even though she'd never particularly liked Natalie. Just helped, showed up, did what family does. I dated a little after about 2 years. Nothing serious. A few dinners, some attempts at connection that mostly fell flat. Hard to trust people when you've been deceived that thoroughly. Hard to believe in the possibility of genuine intimacy when your entire frame of reference is a 15-year con. One woman, Melissa, a project architect I met through work, asked me directly, "Are you ever going to be able to trust anyone again?" We were having coffee after a site meeting. She'd been hinting at interest for weeks. I'd been deflecting. "Honestly," I said, "I don't know, maybe not." She nodded slowly. "That's fair, but it's also sad." "Yeah," I agreed. "It is." We didn't go out again after that. She deserved someone who could offer more than permanent skepticism. Natalie wrote letters from prison, one every few months, addressed to me but really meant for the kids, asking about school, their activities, their lives, saying she was sorry, saying she loved them, saying she hoped someday they'd understand. I read them first, then decided whether to share them with Emma and Tyler. Most I kept. Some, the ones that seemed genuinely remorseful rather than manipulative, I let the kids see. Emma read hers silently, then filed them in a box under her bed without comment. Tyler asked once if we could visit Mommy in prison. I told him maybe when he was older, when he could understand better. He accepted that and went back to his Legos. I never wrote back, never visited. Some people might call that cruel. I call it self-preservation. She'd taken 15 years of my life. I wasn't giving her any more. 4 years after the arrest, I was having dinner with the kids. Tyler was 10 now, Emma 12, when Emma asked, "Dad, do you think you'll ever get married again?" "I don't know," I said. "Why?" "Ashley's dad got remarried last year. She has a stepmom now." "How's that going for her?" Emma shrugged. "She says it's okay. Weird, but okay." Tyler looked up from his spaghetti. "I don't want a new mom." "You don't have to worry about that," I said. "I'm not planning on getting married anytime soon." "Good," Tyler said, and returned to his dinner. Emma studied me across the table. She had Natalie's eyes, same shape, same color. Sometimes it was hard to look at her because of that. But she had my temperament. Careful, methodical, someone who thought before acting. "Are you lonely?" she asked. The question caught me off guard. "Sometimes," I admitted. "But I have you guys. That helps." "We're not the same as having a partner, though." "No," I agreed. "You're not. You're better." She smiled at that. "You're such a dad." That's literally my job description. 5 years after the trial, I received a call from the federal prison where Natalie was serving her sentence. She'd been in a fight with another inmate. Broken ribs, concussion. She was in the prison hospital but stable. They called me because I was still listed as her emergency contact. I'd never bothered to change it. "Do you want to be notified of her condition going forward?" the administrator asked. "No," I said. "We're divorced. She has a sister in Houston. Contact her." "Understood. I'll update our records." I hung up and went back to reviewing blueprints for a mixed-use development downtown. Natalie's broken ribs weren't my problem. Her prison fights weren't my concern. She'd made her choices. She was living with the consequences. I'd spent enough time dealing with the fallout from her decisions. The kids are older now. Emma's 16, applying to colleges. Tyler's 14, playing basketball and talking about maybe becoming an engineer. They're good kids. Well-adjusted, considering. Therapy helped. Time helped. Stability helped. They don't talk about Natalie much. She's become this distant figure in their past. The mother who went to prison when they were young. They know the basic facts. She stole secrets, she broke the law, she's serving time. But it's abstract to them now. Not a daily presence, just a historical fact. Emma asked once if she should visit before going to college. Like, for closure or whatever. "That's your choice," I told her. "I won't stop you. But don't do it because you think you should. Do it only if you actually want to." She thought about it for a week, then decided against it. "I don't think I have anything to say to her," she said. "And I don't think she has anything to say that I need to hear." I respected that. Closure is overrated anyway. Some things don't get resolved. They just become part of your history. People ask sometimes how I'm doing. Coworkers, friends, my mother. They want to know if I'm okay, if I've moved on, if I've processed the betrayal. I tell them I'm fine. And mostly that's true. I'm not bitter. Not anymore. Bitterness requires energy I don't have. Requires caring about something that's over and done. I'm not broken. The kids are healthy and happy. My career is solid. I have a life that works, even if it's not the life I thought I was building. I'm not waiting for anything. Not for Natalie to get out of prison, not for some grand moment of understanding or forgiveness. That chapter is closed. What I am is careful, methodical, someone who verifies everything and trusts cautiously. Someone who knows that people can lie for years, can construct elaborate fictions, can be someone completely different than who they claim to be. Some people might call that cynical. I call it realistic. Last week, I was at Emma's school for parent-teacher conferences. Her English teacher, a kind woman in her 50s, mentioned that Emma had written an essay about trust and betrayal, about how sometimes the people closest to you can be strangers, about learning to rely on yourself. It was very mature, the teacher said. Very thoughtful. She's processing some complex emotions. She's had to, I said. The teacher nodded. She knew our history. Everyone in town knew our history, at least the broad strokes. She's going to be okay, the teacher said. She's got a good head on her shoulders, and a good father. I thanked her and moved on to the next conference. Later, driving home with Emma, I asked about the essay. "It's not about hating mom," she said. "It's just understanding that people are complicated, that you can't always know what's real." "That's pretty wise for 16, she shrugged. "I had a good teacher." I knew she didn't mean the English instructor. There's no neat moral to this story. No lesson that makes it all make sense. People lie. Sometimes for small reasons, sometimes for huge ones. Sometimes the lies are so elaborate, so sustained, that they become their own reality. And when those lies collapse, they take everything built on them down too. You can do everything right. Be a good spouse, a good parent, a good person, and still end up with your life in ruins because someone else made different choices. That's not fair. It's not just. It just is. What matters is what you do after. How you rebuild. Whether you let the betrayal destroy you, or whether you use it as foundation for something different. Something smaller maybe, but genuine. I chose genuine. My life now is smaller than the one I thought I had. Fewer illusions. Less trust. More caution. But it's real. The love I have for my kids is real. The work I do is real. The relationships I maintain, careful and limited as they are based on actual truth. That's worth something. Maybe not everything I lost, but something. Natalie has 11 years left on her sentence. She'll be 58 when she gets out, if she serves the full term. The kids will be adults with their own lives. I'll be in my late 50s, probably still managing construction projects and attending school events for grandchildren if I'm lucky. We'll all have moved on. She'll be a footnote in our history. The mother who wasn't. The wife who was actually a spy. An interesting story to tell at dinner parties, maybe, if we're the kind of people who tell those stories. I don't know if I'll ever fully understand why she did it. The money, probably. The thrill, maybe. Some combination of factors that made sense to her in ways I'll never comprehend. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that my kids are okay. That we built something real from the wreckage. That we survived. Some nights, I still lie awake and think about those 15 years. Wonder how many moments were genuine. Whether she ever actually loved me or if it was all just cover. Whether any of it was real. Then I remember. It doesn't matter if it was real to her. It was real to me. I loved genuinely. I showed up honestly. I built what I thought was a life with integrity. That she was lying doesn't make my truth less valid. I was a good husband to someone who didn't deserve it. I'm a good father to kids who do. I'm a good man who got dealt a terrible hand and played it the best I could. That's enough. It has to be enough. If there's a lesson in all this, it's simple. You can't control other people's choices. You can only control your own. You can't prevent betrayal. You can only decide how you respond to it. I chose documentation over confrontation. Evidence over emotion. Protection over revenge. I chose my children over my anger. I chose to rebuild rather than destroy myself trying to understand the incomprehensible. Those were good choices, the right choices, the only choices, really, that let me sleep at night. Last month, Tyler asked if I thought people could change. We were shooting baskets in the driveway, just the two of us, evening light going golden. Like, if someone does something really bad, he said, can they become good again? I thought about Natalie, about whether 18 years in prison would change who she fundamentally was, whether she'd emerge rehabilitated or just older. I think people can change their behavior, I said. Whether they change who they are deep down? I don't know. Maybe, but it's hard. Do you think Mom will change? I think she'll have a lot of time to think about her choices, I said. What she does with that time is up to her. Tyler nodded, took a shot that bounced off the rim. I don't think about her much anymore. Is that bad? No, I said. It's self-preservation. It's healthy. Good. He grabbed the rebound. Your turn. We played until dark. Just a father and son, shooting baskets, living a normal life that we'd built from the ruins of lies. It's not the life I planned, but it's real. And in the end, that's all that matters. Real is enough. Real is everything.